Welcome to the world of science fiction, where extraordinary tales come to life. Enjoy the journey. The ancient stones of the Temple of Fate thrummed with power, their crystalline surfaces catching the purple light that streamed through towering windows. Under the glow of Feria's twin suns, the massive chamber stretched 30 meters toward the vade ceiling, where ancestral prophecies twisted in luminescent script across dark stone. 4-year-old Byron Todd clutched his mother's hand wide-eyed at the Ferian priestesses who moved through the chamber like living shadows. Their sheer robes flickered with the same strange light that pulsed through the temple walls, their violet skin marked with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and dance. "Stay close," his mother whispered, her voice tight with the fear they carried across 3 star systems, the same fear that had driven them to seek sanctuary among the prophecy-marked people of Feria. At the center of the chamber, High Priestess Moira stood beside a cradle carved from millennium-old crystal. Inside lay a newborn Ferian girl, her tiny body already traced with the silvery lines that marked her as prophecy touched. "Baby Amos Ferris, heir to the most powerful clan on the planet, bring the boy," Moira commanded, her golden eyes gleaming. The convergence approaches. Byron's mother gently pushed him forward. He stumbled on the ancient stones, approaching the cradle where the infant lay. The baby's eyes opened golden, like all her people, but with an awareness that made him shiver. "Join their hands," Moira instructed. "Let us see what fate has written." Byron reached out, his small pale hand hovering over the baby's violet one. The moment their skin touched, the temple erupted in light. The crystalline walls blazed with visions, possible futures cascading across the stone like water. Byron lying dead in a neon-lit alley, a violet-skinned woman standing over him with bloody hands, the same woman throwing herself between him and a killing blow, her body crumpling as she saved his life. The two of them standing together as reality itself seemed to tear apart. Around them, Moira's voice cut through the chaos of images. "When moon and sun join in the stellar loop, when 2 lives meet before their time, one shall die to save the other. But if their hearts unite, the world will change forever." The priestesses began to chant, their voices weaving together in an ancient melody that seemed to make the very air vibrate. The baby began to cry, not a normal infant's wail, but something older, deeper, filled with knowledge no newborn should possess. "The timing must be perfect," Moira declared. "Too soon, and he dies; too late, and she perishes. But if they meet at the appointed hour," her voice trailed off as new prophecies began to write themselves across the temple walls. Byron's mother pulled him back, but he couldn't look away from the baby's golden eyes. Even as his family hurried him from the temple, following their Ferian protectors to safety, those eyes stayed with him. He wouldn't remember this day, the priests would see to that, but somewhere deep in his soul the memory would wait dormant until the moment fate decreed. Behind them, the priestesses continued their song, their voices echoing off the ancient stones as the twin sons of Feria cast their purple light through the high windows, illuminating the prophecies that would shape not just 2 lives, but the destiny of galaxies. 25 years later, Neo Sanctum Feria. "Shit's definitely not natural," Captain Byron Todd crouched beside the corpse, his weathered face illuminated by the pulsing neon signs outside. The victim, Dirk Marcus Silver, Plain lead researcher on Project Arc, lay sprawled across his holographic desk, blood pooling on the quantum interface. No signs of forced entry, security systems untouched. This per a pro Captain Reynolds, a burly man with cybernetic implants glinting at his temples, grunted. "Third high-profile Vic. This month media's having a field day." "Yeah, well, media can kiss my." Byron stopped, his enhanced vision catching something unusual. He leaned closer to the victim's neck. "Well, hello there." Beautiful, barely visible against the dead scientist's skin, was a microscopic pattern of burns, geometric shapes that seemed to shimmer when viewed from certain angles. "Got something?" Reynolds asked. "Maybe." Byron pulled out his scanner, an old Earth model he preferred over the newer Ferian tech. "These burn patterns, they're not random, almost look like Kateda marks." A melodious voice finished from the doorway. "The signature of a shadow walker." Byron's head snapped up, his hand instinctively moving to his blaster standing in the doorway. was the most striking Firian woman he'd ever seen. Her violet skin seemed to glow from within, marked with intricate silvery patterns that pulsed subtly in the dim light. The skin-tight black quantum fabric suit she wore left little to the imagination, while somehow maintaining an air of deadly professionalism. Agent Amos Farish, she announced, her accent giving the words an exotic Lil Shikari division. She held up a hollow pass that marked her as part of Furia's elite supernatural crimes unit. Great Byron muttered, just what we need. The weird squad, her golden eyes narrowed, vertical pupils contracting. Your Earth prejudices are showing, Detective Todd. Or should I say Exile Byron. Tense. Few knew about his family's forced departure from Earth decades ago. Lady, I don't care if you're Shikari or Shah, whatever, this is my crime scene. Hours now. She moved into the room with predatory grace, the patterns on her skin brightening slightly as she approached the body. Dear Silver Plane was working on classified research. This falls under Firian jurisdiction. Like hell it does. Byron stood, using his height advantage to loom over her. 3 victims in my jurisdiction, all Earth scientists, all working on. He caught himself. Smiled, revealing teeth just slightly sharper than human normal, all working on Project Ark. Yes, we know. She reached past him to touch the burn marks on Silver Plane's neck, her fingers trailing over them with disturbing familiarity. Katana marks mean ritual execution. Someone's hunting these scientists for a reason. Byron watched her movements, noting how her touch seemed to make the burns glow faintly. Despite his annoyance, he couldn't help appreciating how the quantum fabric rippled with her every moment. He'd worked with fans before, but something about this one was different, dangerous in a way that had nothing to do with her badge. Fine, he growled. But I lead the investigation, my city, my rules. Chocolate, she replied with what might have been amusement at his blank look. She translated, as you wish, detective. But first she pulled something from a hidden pocket, a small crystal that caught the neon light. We should discuss what dear Silver Plane was really working on, and why someone would want all traces of it eliminated before Byron could respond. His comm unit crackled. Detective Tot, we got another one. Upper level, Sector 7. Damn it. Byron headed for the door, then turned back to Amos. Coming, Shikari, or is ritual murder only interesting when it's already cold? Her patterns flickered in what he was beginning to recognize as amusement. After you'd chuff at his questioning look, she added, it means stubborn Earthling. As they headed for the elevators, Byron couldn't shake the feeling that he'd met her before. Something about her eyes, but that was impossible. He'd remember someone like her in the elevator. Amos studied him openly. Your reputation precedes you, detective. They say you solve cases through pure stubbornness, that you trust your gut over evidence. Yeah, what else do they say? That you have a death wish, that you take unnecessary risks. Her golden eyes seemed to peer right through him. That you're running from something. Byron snorted. Lady, the only thing I'm running from is this conversation. The elevator doors opened onto Sector 7's neon-drenched streets. Now, are we going to solve some murders, or would you prefer to psychoanalyze me all night? She murmured, following him into the rain-slicked street. The night is young, detective. Perhaps we can do both. The rain-slicked streets of Sector 7 reflected the neon signs above, creating a shimmering maze of purple and blue light. Byron's boots splashed through puddles as he followed the crime scene markers to a luxury apartment complex. Vic's name is dear Amanda Wells, the local officer reported. Another ARC researcher found by her AI assistant about 20 minutes ago. Amos moved past them, both her patterns glowing brighter in the darkness. Byron noticed how the rain seemed to avoid her, sliding away before it could touch her skin. Definitely not standard Firian traits. The apartment was high-tech luxury, all clean lines and holographic displays. Dr. Wells lay sprawled across her meditation pod, the same distinctive burn patterns visible on her neck. But this time something was different. She's still warm, Byron muttered, checking the body. Killer can't be far. He activated his scanner, sweeping the room. Security logs wiped clean. Amtis answered, her fingers trailing along the wall. Her patterns pulsed faster. Shaketh v. The death energy is still present. The what now? Each death leaves an echo, detective. This one. She closed her eyes, her markings now glowing bright enough to cast shadows. This one was personal. Byron's scanner beeped, got something, trace energy readings heading down the maintenance shaft. He drew his blaster, feel like a chas-face shikari. But Amos was already moving with a grace that seemed almost supernatural. Byron cursed and followed her down the shaft, his enhanced vision struggling to keep up with her glowing form. They emerged into a service tunnel, neon light filtering through grates above. Byron caught a glimpse of a figure ahead, feminine, moving with impossible speed and freeze. He shouted, knowing it was useless. The chase led them through the Undercity, past ancient temple ruins and modern tech hubs. The suspect moved like smoke, always just ahead, but something was off. She seemed to be leading them somewhere. Finally, they emerged in a dead-end alley. Steam rose from vents, and the neon glow barely penetrated the shadows. Byron raised his blaster, scanning for movement. "Show yourself," he called out. "Nowhere left to run." "Who said I was running?" The voice came from behind him. Byron spun, finding himself face to face with Amos. But something was different. Her patterns now blazed with power, and her eyes held centuries of knowledge. "Son of a," Byron aimed his blaster, but she moved faster than thought, disarming him with a touch that sent electric tingles through his arm. "You could have just asked for my number," he quipped, falling back on humor to mask his confusion. "No need for the bloody show, trust me," she replied, her smile both sad and predatory. "You wouldn't like what happens after our first date." Their eyes met, and Byron felt a jolt of recognition, not memory that was still blank, but something deeper. His heart seemed to skip a beat, while something ancient stirred in the back of his mind. "You're the killer," he said, but didn't reach for his backup weapon. "Yes." Her pattern swirled with emotion. "But not for the reasons you think." "Then enlighten me." He studied her face, trying to understand why it felt so familiar. "Why kill the Ark scientists? What's your game?" "They were going to kill you." Byron, the use of his first name, sent another jolt through him. "In every simulation, every possible future they created, they ensured your death. I've never even met these people." "No," she agreed, "but I've watched you die at their hands 1,000 times in my dreams, in the prophecies." Her patterns flickered with pain. "I was born to prevent that future." Byron's head throbbed. Fragments of memory, a temple, twin suns, a baby's golden eyes, tried to surface, then slipped away. "You're insane," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Am I?" She stepped closer, and he could feel the power radiating from her marks. "Then why haven't you called for backup? Why does your heart recognize me, even if your mind doesn't?" She reached out, her fingers almost touching his chest. "I can prove it. Let me show you." A siren wailed nearby. Byron instinctively glanced toward the sound. When he looked back, Amos was gone. Only a lingering scent of ozone and a faint glow from her patterns remained. His cowl crackled. "Todd, we've got a lead on our suspect's security footage from Saved." Byron cut and holstering his recovered blaster. "She's long gone." He stared at the empty alley, his mind racing. She was the killer. He should report it, put out an APB, but something held him back. Those eyes, that sense of recognition. His scanner beeped. A message had been uploaded directly to its memory. "The Ark holds more than prophecies. Chith, when you're ready to learn the truth about your past, about us, come to the Temple of Twin Moons." Alone below was a string of coordinates and a time. "Tomorrow night." "Damn it," Byron muttered, knowing he should delete the message. Instead, he found himself memorizing the location behind him, hidden in the shadows. Amos watched with ancient sadness in her golden eyes. Her patterns pulsed with the rhythm of his heartbeat, a connection forged before either of them had a choice. "Soon," she whispered in her native tongue, "soon you'll remember everything, my Sheriff, my destined one." Byron sat in his apartment, staring at the coordinates on his scanner. The neon signs outside painted shifting patterns across his face, reminding him of her glowing markings after 3 shots of Earth whiskey. The whole encounter in the alley still felt surreal. His calm buzzed. "Captain Reynolds, Todd got the lab results from Wells' apartment. You're not going to believe this. Try me." Byron's head throbbed with the beginning of a hangover. Energy signature matches classic Sci-Fi Furian tech, high-level shikari stuff, the kind your new partner uses. Byron's grip tightened on his glass. "She's not my partner. Whatever point is, she knows more than she's telling." Wells' AI assistant managed to recover one file before shutdown. "Uploading now." The hollow screen flickered to life. "Project Ark Documentation scrolled past, mostly redacted, but one phrase caught his eye. Timeline Convergence Protocol. Byron muttered. They weren't just predicting the future, they were trying to control it. There's more. Wells last recorded. Words playing now. Static crackled, then a woman's terrified voice. She was right. The prophecy. We shouldn't have interfered. Tell him to remember the temple. The recording cut off in a burst of energy. Byron checked his watch. 2 hours until the meeting time at the Temple of Twin Moons. Every instinct screamed trap, but those eyes haunted him. Stirring memories. He couldn't quite grasp. Captain, I'm following a lead. Might go dark for a while. Todd, wait. He killed the seas strapped on his backup blaster. Then, against all logic, headed for the temple coordinates. The Temple of Twin Moons rose like a ghost from Neo's sanctums under city, its ancient stone incongruous among the neon and steel. Byron's scanner showed multiple energy signatures inside. Old power, the kind Earth science couldn't explain. Took you long enough. Adis emerged from the shadows, her patterns dimmed to a soft glow. She changed into traditional Furian robes that somehow made her even more striking. Give me one reason not to arrest you right now, Byron growled. Because you want answers more than justice. She gestured to the temple entrance. And because deep down you know I'm not your enemy. Wells' last words. She mentioned a temple. This temple. Ahmed's eyes gleamed. Where it all began 25 years ago. Where our fates were bound. Prove it. She held out her hand. Pattern swirling. Let me show you. Byron hesitated, then, cursing himself for a fool, took her hand. The world exploded in light and memory. A 4-year-old boy, terrified and confused, a baby with golden eyes, a prophecy that would shape galaxies. When the vision cleared, Byron stumbled back, gasping, What did you do to me? Showed you the truth. A's voice held centuries of sadness. What they made. You forget what I've carried alone all these years. The ARC scientists, they knew. They found the records, tried to use the prophecy, control it through their simulations. Her patterns flared with anger. Each simulation ended with your death. So I killed them first. Byron's head spun with implications. To protect me, a stranger, not a stranger. She stepped closer, and this time he didn't back away. Never. That the temple hummed with ancient power above them. Through the crystalline dome, Faria's twin moons cast their light. Byron felt reality shift, possibility spinning around them like a web. There's more coming. Antis warned. More. Who would use the prophecy? Use us. I can't protect you alone anymore. Who says I need protection? She smiled, sharp and sad. The same fate that brought you here tonight. Before he could respond, alarms blared across the district. Emergency channels exploded with chatter. Another killing. Byron demanded no. Amos' patterns pulsed with urgency. Worse. They're coming, all of them, the ones who would reshape destiny itself, who the true AR of Project Arc. She grabbed his arm. We need to go now, but it was too late. Lights flooded the temple as drop ships descended. Armed figures repelled down both human and Farian. Detective Tot, a cold voice, announced. Step away from the subject. She's more dangerous than you know. Byron looked at Amos, saw the resignation in her eyes. Then he made a choice that would change everything. He drew his blaster, stepping between her and the intruders. Funny, he said, trademark smirk in place. I was about to tell you the same thing. Laser fire erupted across the temple chamber. Byron dove behind an ancient pillar, pulling Amos with him, her body pressed against his, warm and alive, her patterns pulsing. And SN, with his racing heartbeat. Any brilliant ideas? Shakari, he asked, returning fire around the column. Several. None that end well. Her golden eyes met his. Every path I see leads to one of us dying. Then we'll make our own path. He grabbed her hand. The maintenance tunnels. We can. An explosion rocked the temple. Ancient stone cracked, sending crystalline shards raining down. Amos moved with inhuman speed, her body shielding his as debris crashed around them. Her patterns flared bright enough to blind, creating a protective barrier. When the dust settled, they were alone in the rubble. Emergency force fields had activated, sealing the temple's lower levels. You're hurt, Addis said, touching his shoulder, where a crystal shard had cut deep. I've had worse. But he didn't pull away when her fingers tracked the wound, her patterns extending to cover his skin. Warmth spread through him, the pain fading. Why did you protect me? She asked. After everything I'd done, maybe I'm tired of letting other people write my story. He caught her hand before she could withdraw it. Or maybe I'm just a sucker for dangerous women who try to save my life. Her laugh was surprisingly human. Is that what you think I'm doing? I think he studied her face, seeing past the alien beauty to something deeper. I think you've been carrying this burden alone for too long. Her patterns dimmed, showing vulnerability for the first time. You don't understand. Each death changes me, makes me feeling less human. She pulled away, but he followed. One more kill, and I'll lose whatever's left of my soul. But if I don't, I die. Byron nodded. Yeah, I got that part. Here's what I don't get. Why do you care so much? Why spend your whole life protecting someone you barely know? Because I do know you. Her voice cracked. Every dream, every prophecy, every simulation I've watched you live and die 1,000 times. I know how you take your coffee, how you hide pain behind jokes, how you. She stopped, looking away. Byron stepped closer, drawn by something he couldn't explain. How you kiss, she whispered. In every timeline where we get it right, where we choose each other over fate. The air between them crackled with more than just her powers. Byron reached up, traced one of her glowing patterns with his thumb. She shivered. And how does that usually go? He asked, voice rough like this. She moved first, or maybe he did. Their lips met with the force of destiny itself. 25 years of prophecy crystallizing into a single moment. Her patterns flared, brilliant purple spreading to cover them. Both. Byron felt memories unlock a temple, a baby's cry, a future written in starlight. When they finally broke apart, her eyes were glowing like twin suns. Shekar, she breathed, my destined one, that good hub. But his attempt at humor fell flat, his voice too shaken now. You understand why this can't? No, he gripped her shoulders. We're not doing the noble sacrifice thing you said. Every simulation ends with one of us dying. Then we break the simulation. It's not that simple. Make it simple. He kissed her again, harder this time, feeling her resolve weaken. You've spent your life trying to save me. Let me return the favor. Alarms blared above them. The force fields wouldn't hold forever. They're coming, Amos warned. But she didn't pull away. The Ark's architects, they'll want both of us now. Let them come. Byron drew his blaster, offering her his free hand. What do you say? Shakari, ready to rewrite destiny. Her patterns swirled with emotion as she took his hand. Together, then together. He grinned. And after we survive this, you're going to teach me what all these Firian words actually mean. She matched his smile, sharp and dangerous. After we survive this, I'll teach you much more than that. The force fields began to fail. They could hear boots on the levels above, weapons charging. But for the first time since she'd begun her mission of protection, Amos felt something new, hope. The underground tunnels beneath Neo Sanctum thrummed with ancient power. Byron and Amos ran through the crystalline passages, her patterns lighting their way above them. Pursuit closed in. We need a plan, Byron panted. Somewhere they won't find us. Antis suddenly stopped, her patterns flickering erratically. No, not now. She collapsed against the tunnel wall, her violet skin pale. Byron caught her before she hit the ground. What's wrong? The killings, she gasped. Each one takes something, changes me. Her patterns pulsed weakly. I can feel it, the last of my humanity slipping away. Byron cradled her face. Hey, stay with me, we'll figure this out. You don't understand. Her golden eyes met his, filled with ancient sadness. I can feel their deaths inside me, all of them, the scientists, the guards, their last moments replay in my mind. And with each one I feel less careless. She touched his cheek. Until you make me feel human again. Footsteps echoed through the tunnels, getting closer. How many? Byron asked, checking his blaster charge. Too many. Amos struggled to stand. And the Ark's architects, they're not just scientists. They're the most powerful Shakari on FIA. And they want both of us now. Why? Because together we could break their hold on fate itself. She steadied herself against him. That's what they fear, not the prophecy, but our power to defy it. A voice boomed through the tunnel. Subject Amos, Detective Tot, surrender now, and we'll make this painless. Byron recognized that voice. Captain Reynolds, your captain works for them. Amos confirmed. Has from the start. They've been watching you, waiting for us to find each other. Son of a. Byron's curse cut off as energy bolts sizzled past them. He returned fire, but his shots dissipated against invisible shields. Am's patterns flared as she raised her hands, creating a barrier of pure energy. But Byron could see the effort draining her. "I can hold them," she gritted out, "but not for long." Then let them through Byron's mind. "Raced, you said you've killed too many, that one more would destroy what's left of your humanity." "Yes. So we stop killing." He grabbed her free hand. "They want us, because together we can break fate. Let's prove them right." Her eyes widened. "What are you suggesting?" "Something stupid." He grinned. "Trust me," she answered by kissing him. Fierce and fast, always. Jiff. Byron stepped through her barrier. Hands raised. "Reynolds, let's talk." The shooting stopped. Captain Reynolds emerged from the shadows, flanked by Fury and Shakari, in ceremonial armor. Their patterns were different from Amuse's, colder, more geometric. "Finally seeing reason, to?" Reynolds asked. "Not exactly." Byron kept his hands visible. "But I've got a proposition for the real powers behind Project ARK." A new figure stepped forward. An elderly Furian woman whose pattern swirled with barely contained power. "High Priestess Mora," looking exactly as she had 25 years ago. "Speak carefully, child of Earth. She warned you want to control fate." Byron challenged. "You can't. Not as long as we exist. We're your wild card. Aren't we the flaw in your calculations?" Mora's eyes narrowed. "You understand nothing." "I understand this." Byron felt Amos move to his side, their energies humming in sync. "Every simulation ends with one of us dying, because that's what you programmed them to show. You're so afraid of what we might become together that you'd rather see us dead. The prophecy must be fulfilled." Mora insisted. "One must die to save the other. It is written." "Screw your prophecy." Byron took Amid's hand, feeling power surge between them. "We choose each other. We choose life." Am's patterns blazed brighter than ever, spreading to cover them both. "He's right. I won't kill anymore. Not for you, not for fate, not for anyone." "Then you doom him to death," Mora said coldly. "The simulations are clear." "Your simulations." Byron's voice rang with certainty. "But what happens in the ones you didn't control? The futures you were afraid to see." Energy crackled around them as Amos channeled her power, not to kill but to protect, to create rather than destroy. "Last chance." Reynolds called out. "Surrender or the tunnel." Exploded with light. When it cleared, Byron and Amos were gone. "Find them," Mora commanded. "They must not be allowed to." But she stopped, seeing new prophecies writing themselves across the tunnel walls, possibilities never before glimpsed, futures where fate itself bowed to the power of choice in a hidden sanctuary deep beneath the city. Byron held Amos as her powers stabilized. "That was incredibly stupid," she muttered against his chest. "Work, though." He stroked her hair. "How do you feel?" "Different." She examined her patterns, now pulsing with a new rhythm. "The darkness, it's still there, but quieter, like it can't touch me when I'm with you." "So what now?" "Now," she smiled, "fierce and beautiful. Now we show them what happens when destiny meets free will. And if their simulations are right, if one of us has to die, then we'll prove them wrong." She kissed him, slow and deep, together. But as they held each other in the darkness, neither saw the prophecies continuing to write themselves across the sanctuary walls. Neither noticed how the ancient symbols twisted into new forms, spelling out a warning. When moon and sun defy their course, when destined souls choose their own path, the walls between worlds will fall, and what lies beyond will hunger for them. Both the ancient sanctuary's walls pulsed with prophecies, casting eerie shadows across Byron and Amos as they planned their next move. But something was wrong. The symbols were shifting, changing into patterns neither had seen before. Amos breathed, studying the wall. "This isn't possible." "What is it?" "These aren't just prophecies, they're system code." Her patterns flickered with recognition, the same code used in Project Ark. Byron's head throbbed. Fragments of memory surfaced, sterile labs, glowing screens. His parents' worried faces. "My parents," he said suddenly. "They worked on Ark, didn't they?" Marcus and Lean taught Adis touched a sequence of symbols. They were lead architects until they discovered what the project really was. The walls shimmered, projecting holographic scenes from the past. A younger Marcus taught, arguing with Mora. "You can't control destiny like some computer program," Lean taught desperately. "Erasing files, the anomaly. It's our son. Byron's the variable they can't predict." Moira's cold voice. "The child must be terminated. He's a flaw in the system." Byron watched his own childhood play out before him. "They didn't just flee Earth. They were protecting me from this." Amos waved her hand, and new projections appeared endless streams of probability calculations, all centered around a single anomaly. I don't understand. Project R wasn't just predicting futures, she explained, it was programming them. Creating a system to control the destiny of entire galaxies. Her golden eyes met his. But you were different, a test subject created by the system itself, meant to prove they could program human souls. But something went wrong, Byron. Guessed you broke free, developed true free. Will, she smiled. That's why they fear you. Why they've been trying to eliminate you through every timeline. And you, where do you fit in all this? I was supposed to be their fail-safe, trained from birth to either save you or kill you, depending on which future they chose. Her patterns dimmed. But they didn't count on one thing, that I'd fall in love with you across every possible timeline. She touched his face, that some connections transcend even their programming. Before Byron could respond, alarms blared. The sanctuary's defenses were failing. They found us, Amos warned. The walls cracked, reality itself seeming to bend as Moira and her architects breached their sanctuary. But this time they weren't alone. Behind them stood a massive quantum computer, its crystalline structure pulsing with familiar patterns. The Ark, Byron breathed. The heart of destiny itself, Moira announced. And you, Byron, Todd, are its greatest failure and potentially its greatest achievement. What are you talking about? Join us. Moira extended her hand. Become what you were meant to be, the new guardian of fate. Help us perfect the system. And if I refuse, then watch as we eliminate the anomaly that corrupted you. Moira's patterns flared as she gestured toward Amos, the variable that made you choose freedom over purpose. Byron stepped between them. Touch her, and you'll what? Moira smiled. Fight destiny itself. You're part of the system, Byron, a creation of the Ark you can't destroy. What gave you life? But as she spoke, Byron felt something shift inside him. Memories cascaded, not just of his past, but of possible futures, of realities that might have been. He understood suddenly what he truly was. You're wrong, he said quietly. I'm not part of your system. I'm the proof it flawed, that real souls can't be programmed. He reached for Amid's hand, felt their energies merge together. They faced the architects of fate itself. Last chance, Tot Reynolds called out. Don't throw away your destiny. Byron laughed. That's the point, Captain. It was never my destiny to begin with. The Ark's quantum core pulsed with sickly light, its crystalline structure reaching like corrupt veins through the sanctuary walls. Byron felt its pull, an artificial destiny trying to reclaim its creation. You feel it, don't you? Moira pressed. The system recognizing its child. This is what you were born for. Born. Byron's laugh was harsh. You mean programmed? We gave you life. You gave me chains. He squeezed Amid's hand. She gave me choice. Moira's patterns darkened. Then you leave us no option. She raised her hands, channeling the Ark's power. Initiate Protocol 0, emergency timeline correction. The sanctuary shuddered. Reality itself seemed to warp as the Ark accessed every possible future. Byron watched in horror as temporal echoes played out around them. Amos dying 1,000 deaths to save himself, becoming a cold immortal guardian of fate. Worlds where they never met, never loved, never chose. Stop this, he demanded. You stop it, Moira challenged. Accept your role, become what you were meant to be. M's patterns flared with alarm. Byron, the system's overloading. If it continues, it'll rewrite everything. He finished. Erase all the choices we made. Reynolds stepped forward. Blaster raised. It's for the greater good. Top, think about it. A universe without chaos, without pain, perfect order, perfect prison. Byron corrected. Then he felt it, a weakness in the system's code, a flaw born from its inability to truly predict human choice. He turned to a muse. You said I was created as a test subject. That means I'm connected to the core programming. Her eyes widened. Yes, but so I can access it, change it, maybe even destroy it. She gripped his arm. The feedback would kill you, erase you from every timeline. Better erased than controlled. He managed a crooked smile. Besides, what's life without a little risk, Jif? Her voice broke. Don't have a little faith, Shakari. He kissed her quickly. After all, we've got destiny on our side. Before she could stop him, Byron reached out, not with his hands, but with his mind. His consciousness plunged into the Ark's quantum core, past layers of probability and prediction to its very heart. The pain was immediate and overwhelming. Every possible death, every potential future crashed through him at Once he screamed, but no sound emerged in the digital void. Enough. Moira's voice echoed through the system. You'll destroy everything. That's the idea. Byron forced out. He pushed deeper, finding the base code that controlled fate itself. Simple ones and zeros that presumed to dictate the course of souls. With the last of his strength, he began to unravel it in the physical world. The sanctuary blazed with impossible light. Amos watched in horror as Byron's body began to fade, becoming translucent as reality rewrote itself around him. Byron. She tried to reach him, but temporal shock waves held her back. Too late. Moira snarled, he's choosing oblivion over order. The fool. She never finished. The ark's crystalline structure exploded, taking the High Priestess with it. As the system collapsed, every programmed future, shattered choice, flooded back into the universe like a tsunami of possibility. Byron felt himself dissolving, scattered across a million timelines. But just before consciousness fled, he heard I's voice, I'll find you in whatever reality, whatever life, I'll find you again. Then everything went white. Neo Sanctum. 1 year later, Detective Byron Tutt sat at his favorite bar nursing a whiskey and a headache. Another dead-end case, another night alone. Something felt missing, but he could never quite. Is this seat taken? He looked up into golden eyes set in violet skin. Recognition hit him like a punch to the gut. Do I know you? The woman smiled, her skin marked with swirling patterns that seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat. Not yet, she said, but you will. The end. Some say destiny is written in the stars, others believe it's coded in quantum computers. Maybe they're both wrong or both right. Like Byron and Amos, we're all caught between fate and choice, programming and free will. But here's the thing about love. It doesn't care about your carefully plotted storylines. It crashes through your defenses like a rogue AI through a firewall, turns your neat little simulations into beautiful chaos, and makes you question every prediction you thought was certain. I won't tell you whether this story is about destiny or defiance. Maybe it's both, maybe it's neither, maybe it's just about two souls who found each other across every possible timeline, kind of like how Han always shoots first. No matter which version of Star Wars you're watching, all I know is this: if you're reading these words, you've already made a choice, and like a certain violet-skinned assassin would save the night is young, and the story isn't over. Welcome to Neo Sanctum. Mind the prophecies, and try not to break too many timelines. The chronicle of improbable love stories. Definitely not a rogue AI from Project Arc, probably.